Hi, sensory siblings. Here's a funny question. What can a brain scan of a song teach you about sensory overload? Well, to find out, we're going to take this and we're going to put it into this. Have you ever gone to a casual social event before at a restaurant or some kind of event space and you're there to be social with people, but this is happening? And then, in order to have a conversation with the people around you, you either have to yell and strain your voice, or you have to do this.
Broke my tooth! Do you have any aspirin?
Well, if you said yes to either of those questions, this video is definitely for you. Now, admittedly, this is a satirical, fictionalized example of being at a dance club, not a casual social event, but the truth is that I've measured the volume at a lot of different social events, networking events, and very often the volume tops 80 decibels, which is close to the volume of a subway platform. And that is not an appropriate volume for a social space. I think you would agree, because I have been frustrated by this at events for years, and the conversations that I've had with other people suggest to me that I am definitely not alone.
You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is.
Sensory contrast collapse.
But it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
Hi!
Do you want to know what
Frequency bunching.
is? It is the
Quiet rooms.
that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
The Solace model.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what
Frequency bunching.
is. You have to see it for yourself. You take
Spectrogram.
You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Hi! Imeo estitophilos. Kalos irtate sto canalimu. Now, it is worth noting that some people do have some degree of hearing loss, or they might have some hearing difficulties, but this goes beyond that. This is a societal issue where there's just too much noise everywhere. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of going to events and basically being like this, and then the next day, like my voice is croaky because I had to yell the whole time. We shouldn't be like that. We shouldn't have to deal with that, right? So if you identify with those issues, let's talk about it. I'm going to deep dive into the science. We're going to go down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to teach you some things. And at the end, you're going to understand how to better self-advocate and how to advocate for change. Join the movement for sensory accessibility. And I also want to give a shout out and a big thank you to Adam Neely
Good stuff. This gives us problems, though, when we go and try and harmonize the melody.
and Ben Jordan.
It's not terribly loud in here. Let's turn the infrasound down. Check this out. Just put my DJI gimbal on the ground here and geez, it's kind of scary.
We're two fellow YouTubers who are doing great work, great educational content that has helped inspire me and influence this work that I'm doing. Thanks, guys. In this video, I'm going to cover 4 main topics. Number 1, frequency bands and the human speech intelligibility zone. Number 2, spectrograms and mapping frequencies, sensory contrast collapse, and the Solace model. Event spaces and frequency control. I'm a sensory nerd, and it's time to go deep. Let's get nerdy.
Did you know that we know what the center of our galaxy smells like?
And you know these things.
Yes, science!
Please try to enjoy each fact equally.
You're gonna learn this, alright? I'm not apologize for my autism. Thank you.
This is is a tough place for sensitive people, but we need them badly.
So you might be thinking to yourself, what the heck is a spectrogram? Well, this is a spectrogram. And this is a spectrogram. And this is a spectrogram.
Is so precise that you can almost make music with it.
And this is a spectrogram too.
Mr.
Spectrogram.
Professor Gerard looks the same as the last time I was here.
Can't say you look the same as the last time you were here.
Yes, you can.
So before we dive into the deep nerdiness of the spectrograms, I'm going to give a little bit of additional context here. So if you listen to music, you know that music is made up of different instruments. Typically, a lot of common like rock music, a lot of even pop music is going to have guitars, drums, bass, maybe sometimes piano or keyboards, and then maybe occasionally some other instruments. But pretty much you got guitar, bass, drums, and singing, vocals. So I made this chart as I was doing research, and the idea here is that this is the entire frequency spectrum that humans can hear, all the way from 20 hertz up to 20,000 hertz. And there's kind of three different sections, or four really. There's the bass section, which is the bass in music, HVAC rumble, and deeper human voices. There's the 300 to 3000 hertz range, which is most of human speech and singing, as well as classroom or meeting room din, which is like kind of like background. That's the din is the term for it. 3000 to 8000 hertz, which is glass clinking, cutlery noise, babies crying, and alarms and sirens, which is obviously that's a pretty key auditory range there. And then 8000 and up is like fluorescent light buzz, electronics whine, and like air. It's like the more like the sibilance and the hiss of things. So on this chart here, you see that these are the three sections, and I've kind of roughly marked them here: the 30 to 300, the 300 to 3000, approximately 3000 to 8000, and then 8000 and up. But here, the key thing is this red bit here, the human speech intelligibility zone. That is a mouthful. You could say the HSIZ. But that bar is 500 hertz to 4000 hertz, and that is the primary frequency band in which we most use and we most need to understand and process speech. So again, I've marked that along this thing vertically. So all of these instruments sit within it, as well as both male and female vocals. And then kind of above here, there's something called the hearing vigilance range, which is like, again, alarms, babies crying, glassware. So basically kind of from like 500 hertz up to about 8000 hertz, which is a big chunk of the auditory spectrum. It's almost half of the entire range that we can hear. That is, the speech intelligibility zone and the hearing vigilance range. And guess what? Look what's going on here. You've got all these instruments, all of the fundamentals and formants of all these instruments in human speech and singing. And then in the hearing vigilance range, you've still got a lot of different instruments. Some of them don't go fully up into the top end of the hearing vigilance range, but they're there. So this is to show that music contains all the same frequencies that we need to hear voices over, we need to understand speech over, as well as needing to hear like alarms, babies crying, in glassware. So if you're at a conference or an event and there's food happening, there's going to be that extra like glassware clinking sound that you've also got to filter with everything else. So that is just to say that there's a lot of frequency competition in that band, competition for our voices and for hearing each other. And this is why it's a problem to have, music and, dishware and all these different things happening at social events. To make it easier, I reformatted this chart that I made, and I stacked all of the instrument frequency lines on top of each other You can still see the human speech intelligibility zone marker here with like a kind of a faint red kind of rectangle around this section. What you can see here very clearly is that every single one of these instruments, including the human speaking and the human voices, exists within the human speech intelligibility zone. They're entirely overlapped. Some of them end just outside, just above the end, just above the top edge, and some end just below the bottom edge, but they're all in here. And so that means that anytime you have music playing at the same time people are talking, even if there's no vocals in the music, any instrument that's in that music, whether it's guitar, bass, drums, piano, brass, woodwinds, all of it, it's all competing with that same frequency spectrum that we are trying to hear, which is obviously a problem. You can only fit so many things in the same space, right? Like it's the classic Simpsons bit with Mr. Burns.
Here's what happens when they all try to get through the door at once. Move it, shout ahead. We call it Three Stooges syndrome.
That sort of idea. So, while we do have some capability to, there's the thing called the cocktail party effect, where we do have some, we do, but it varies person to person, but we do technically have the ability to kind of tune in to individual sound sources and kind of hear them and block the other stuff out, but you can't do that for hours on end. Hi, Sensory Nerd here. Are you enjoying this video? Well, if you are, could you do me a little favor? Can you like and subscribe? It really helps the channel. Thanks. Now back to the video. So we're going to be looking primarily at audio spectrograms, obviously. That's the point of this video. But again, spectrograms exist in theory, for all the senses and for different purposes. So these are essentially light spectrograms, not exactly the same thing, but they represent a very similar context. You're looking at the power of that wavelength of light along the wavelength spectrum. And these are 3 different examples. And then here, this isn't a real one, but this is a simulation of if you kind of took that same concept and you mapped different types of sense and air quality metrics over top of it. Here's a spectrogram. One individual spectrogram of a clip from a song.
I can see the music.
And this spectrogram it's got 3 axes, basically. The x-axis, which is left to right along the bottom, is the time. So this is over the duration of the audio file that was analyzed. From bottom to top is the y-axis. That's from 0 hertz at the bottom up to 10,000 hertz in this case. So this is covering a 10,000 hertz span. It's analyzing 10,000 hertz of the audio file. There is more information further up in higher frequencies. And then additionally, the brightness of the color. So if it's black or it's really dark, that means that at that frequency, at that point in time, that frequency had 0 or less. It is too quiet to register on here. You see the threshold is set at 0 decibels, so anything black is 0 decibels or lower in volume. And of course, these things that are like this bright orange or bright yellow are the loudest, so those are the ones that stand out the most on here. So you can see from this that you can kind of see that there's some stuff going on, mostly here between 0 and 4,000 hertz, but in the kind of latter half, there's more stuff starting to happen up in the higher, the high mids, as they're called. So here are 6 spectrograms, and the one that we just looked at is here. But here are 6 different examples of approximately 6 different genres. So we've got like rock music, we've got like fully synthesized like kind of R&B, we've got fully synthesized like pop electronic, we've got some industrial metal, we've got some indie folk pop. So, looking at these, you don't necessarily know which one's which. I mean, if you're an audio engineer, you probably do, or maybe if you're just a musician, but if you've never looked at a spectrogram before, you wouldn't necessarily know which of these is which. You wouldn't know which one's metal and which one is like, folk pop. But you might start to get a sense of that. But this is examples here. And these are all from songs, but it is important to note this is also a spectrogram. This is from a movie. This is a scene from a movie. So you can tell that this bears some similar, there's some similarities here. Like if I had showed you this and not told you that it wasn't a song, you probably would have been like, oh, this is another song. This is not actually a song. There is some music in here, but it's more like, ambient or background music. It's like, it's for the scene. It's not like a song. But again, we compare that to these. There's similar, kind of structures and patterns and things in there, because there's going to be certain kinds of patterns in audio. But so let's look at an example, and I can point some things out to you to help you have a little bit of context here. So apologies if this isn't exactly your preferred style of music, but this particular sample is really good for illustrating a few specific things really quickly, because I can't spend a ton of time on this for the video. But if you want to see a deeper dive on this, leave a comment and let me know. But here we're going to watch and we're going to listen and see what you notice, what lines up with the tracker head through the spectrogram. So there, you kind of get the idea. So I'll just point a few things out really quickly here. So if we go back to the beginning, you can probably hear in the background that there's this like kind of buzzy synthy kind of thing that I happen to know that that's a bass guitar that's being put through an effects pedal. But as you kind of hear it sort of warbling up and down, like in pitch, you can see here on the spectrogram that the color is kind of rising and falling, and that is showing you, that's a visualization that as the pitch of that note goes up, the color on the spectrogram lifts kind of higher up to a higher frequency. That's how that works. Now, another thing to kind of note here, there's a lot of obviously dark space, but then you've got these kind of spiky pillars that are shooting straight up. And there's just a few of them, but then here there's a few, and then there's a few, and there's a few. Those are drum hits. So the drum kit is one of the few instruments that actually covers like the whole frequency spectrum kind of by itself. Because the kick drum and the toms obviously are more in the bass range. Some of the toms are kind of in the mids and the snare, and then the cymbals are much higher pitch in the kind of, the air region of the frequency spectrum. But when you have a drummer kind of do the kick drums, snare, cymbals, that kind of creates this big splash of like sound across the whole spectrum, but it's short-lived because only the cymbals kind of carry through. So if we look at this, you can see there's like a little bit of like a smoke trail there, and that's from the cymbal hits. Now, another quick little thing I'll point out here, these three little dots, that's from the ride bell hitting. So listen, watch and listen. So there's that. And then again, here is where there's like the double bass and the guitar doing a triplet chug together. So you've got, and then, so another thing to notice, so you've got these like streaks kind of running across, right? Like there's this line. So you've got these vertical pillars, these vertical spikes, and they've also got this line just running straight through this whole thing. What's that about? Because there's nobody singing, right? There's nobody holding a note. There's no guitar or piano holding a note or anything. That is actually from the drums. Because again, the drummer is consistently playing on the ride cymbal, and that is carrying through here, except for when, not except for, but until these other hits come in that hit the other frequencies as well. And then over here, it's suddenly a lot more filled in, and that's because distorted guitars and regular bass come in. So now, if I pull up the kind of plain image one, you can see down at the bottom, so here you too, the kick drum hits are visible as these like orange blotches. But then we get to here, and now the kick drum and the bass guitar are going to be going more consistently, so it creates this like yellowish line, this yellowish section. And then up in this mid kind of area, this is like the guitar exists mostly in kind of like the mid frequencies. So that's what's going on there, and there's a little bit up here too. And then this is the point where it switches to just like kind of a slap funky bass and the singer and the drummer. So there's no more guitar in here, which is why there's a lot more kind of darker space in the pockets, whereas this looks like TV static in like red, right? So we'll go back again and listen and look, and you can hear how full this sounds in comparison and what you're seeing. And like a lot of rock and metal music does look a lot like that. And again here, so this is a black kind of column because everything drops out except for like, the kind of the resonance of the kick drum. So here we've got a few things. We've got the ride cymbal bell, got cymbal, like the hiss, the sibilance of the cymbals, the ghost kind of resonance there, the synth, the effects on the bass that's kind of warbling through, the guitar chugs. Here we've got, the other stuff. So that just shows you a number of different kind of sonic elements and how they show up in a spectrogram like this. Again, for context. But this, again, when I talk about those instrument frequency ranges, you can hear that when there's only like this kind of synth bass thing and like drums happening and like no guitars and no vocals, there's a lot of frequency space that is unused or very minimally used. So if this beginning section, if this is going on in the background at an event, you're talking to people, it might still be kind of distracting, but like you're not going to have to yell over this the same way because your voice is going to exist in a lot of this open space here. Now let's look at another example to really cement this idea of the frequency bunching and competing with voices for space. So here we see we got a big hole in this spectrogram. Like a hole, it's not a hole, it's just a period of time in this audio, in this song clip where there's no, again, above this threshold, there's no frequency information at a volume that will show up. So this spectrogram is going from 0 to 8,000 hertz, and we can kind of already see something here. We see like a little slide here, and then here we can kind of see like it also kind of seems to kind of fade up or fade in, right? So let's listen and watch and see how this looks for how it sounds, right? Now, what do we notice about how this sounds right now? Like, let me listen and think. How does this sound different? Is it clear? Is it like really present? How about now? And now it's much more full, right? But if we go back again, here, listen. Kind of sounds like that's like muffled and far away and like down a tunnel, right? Like it doesn't sound like it's, present. But as it goes on, what's happening here? You can see here, this little bit, there's a few little colored dots there, just right around 1,000 to probably about 1,700 hertz. We get to here, now you're starting to see some colored dots coming in kind of from about 1,700 up to around like 3,000. So you're adding another 1,000-ish hertz of frequency. And now another 1,000 or so. And now, here was kind of faint, just very faintly starting to kick in above 4,000. And now this next little bit, we've got it right up the thing. It's not as loud, but it's all coming back now. So there you go. And again, if you think, if this is happening in the background at a social event, you're not going to have trouble talking over this. That'll actually be kind of chill, just in the background. You kind of just be like, even I, as someone who doesn't like music and sound at events really, this would be fine in the background. Like this is like, you know, smooth jazz or like really like lo-fi instrumental, indie electronica type stuff. Like no heavy pulsing bass, no like heavy percussion, vocals, like no vocals, right? So, but again, this whole mid-range, this is, you know, again, 500 hertz to, what was it, 8,000 or something? Like this whole blank space is that speech intelligibility zone, right? So let's bring that chart back up here. So, right, see, let's look at this again. So our speech intelligibility zone, 500 hertz up to 4,000 hertz. What is almost entirely empty here? A little bit. It's about 1,000 to 4,000 is open here, and then starting to come back in. But like even when we get to this point where it's, you know, starting to come in, like now in this point here, the whole human speech intelligibility zone has frequencies happening again in the music, but it's still not like overwhelming and overpowering, right? It's still pretty chill, pretty calm, kind of relaxing. Like it's not too bad. Now, again, now we've got Ted and the woman yelling at each other and not understanding each other at all because the speech is being drowned out by all this frequency that they have to compete with. This is the problem, or this is one of the problems, I should say. So here, let's look at this version of it again. I keep showing it in different ways, different contexts to really make it clear and obvious what's happening. So in this case, I have circled the part of the live view spectrogram that corresponds to what you're hearing in that particular part of the kind of static one with the little playhead. So let's watch and pay attention to the area here within this kind of whitish circle that I've drawn. So you can actually see that descending sound kind of lowering in the yellow line. You can see those notes pinging in here. Right there. You can see this line is starting to grow, climb up again. It's way up now. Now it's near the top. You can see the kind of the bass hits really kind of thumping there. So this is how you should have done this for all the samples, honestly, but this is how you can see, again, if we go back down here, the very low end of this, when everything is pulled back and faded in the background, you listen, you look, and you see this whole thing is like a big scoop here. There's a big scoop here, and there's a big scoop here. And then as this part starts to fill back in, this yellow line starts to grow and climb up, and it gets above this line, and then it gets up to here. And those little, see, right there, those little, it's coming right here. So it's right around 1,000 hertz, which makes sense. Right here. There we go. So you can literally see this whole chunk here between 1,000 and 10,000, which makes sense because this again is from 1,000 or from 0 up to 10,000 or 8,000, whatever. So this whole thing is practically level now because this whole frequency spectrum has kicked back in now. So you're getting the full sound, the full body of the sound, and it's reflected over here. So earlier in the video, I referenced sensory contrast collapse, which is not a term that was being used before I started using it. I searched, I couldn't find any record of it. But since this is a visual medium, I figured that a visual kind of demonstration to help it make sense would be helpful. If you're not familiar, contrast is basically the kind of difference between two things. If there's a high contrast between them, that they're very different. So here I have an example. This is a photograph that I took at an event, a picture on my phone. I'm going to walk through in an image editing program what it looks like to progressively dial down the contrast, to essentially collapse the contrast of this image. So let's watch. So I'm going to track on the screen here. You'll see that I'm tracking how many times I've lowered the contrast. There's a limit to how much you can lower the contrast at once in this particular program, but as you watch it go, see what you're noticing here. What's happening as the contrast is lowered? So you can see as we get really to the end here, I did 13 steps. You can see that getting to the end, it looks like this is now a room full of like thick brownish gray smoke, and you can barely still see the silhouettes of some of the people, and other people have just disappeared into the smoke, into the fog. So that is, and you can see that pretty much the only things that still kind of stand out are bright high contrast lights like the red and yellow. There's a little bit from here from like an LCD screen, but even up here in the rafters, like the majority of this image is now essentially gone. Like the contrast information of this image has been stripped away, and the contrast is now collapsed. And so if you walked into this room like this, assuming this wasn't actually smoke, assuming there was actual air, you could breathe comfortably and safely. If you walked into this room, you'd have absolutely no idea how many people were in this room. And if there was music playing, you would be very disoriented and very lost. You'd have to be, kind of feeling around like your eyes were closed. You'd be bumping into people. It would just be a mess. This is the core concept behind sensory contrast collapse. This is a visual example of losing sensory contrast in a visual sense, but the same thing can happen auditorily, taste-wise, scent-wise, temperature, tactile. Basically, any sensory channel that we have as human beings can lose the contrast. It can collapse like this, and if it happens in multiple channels at once, that's what can lead to processing collapse. And that's when we get overloaded and we shut down and we need to leave. We need to go back to somewhere where we can recalibrate and re-regulate ourselves. But public spaces shouldn't be doing this to us. That is my argument. That is the kind of ethos behind Beyond Quiet Rooms. And so again, to recontextualize this, we've watched how I stripped out the visual contrast, the color contrast information from this image. So now visually, there's very little information here. And thus, if you look at this and you're trying to figure out how many people are there, where are the edges of like furniture and what's going on, you really have to strain to try to figure it out. And that is extra processing power, which, we only have a limited amount of. And you're also trying to enjoy an event, socialize, connect with people, all that. And then on the flip side here, the kind of comparative spectrogram of the threshold of what volume of frequency has to be to register on this graph is very low. So there's a lot of color, a lot of brightness. So this is like turning up your sensitivity. You're not hearing more, but your more is kind of registering on your circuit, your mental circuit. And so this is like the information stripped away so you don't have information to work with. This is that you're drinking from a fire hose of audio information and you can't easily parse it. Make sense? And to put a final bow on this, so we were just looking at this bottom example here where the lower contrast is creating higher cognitive processing load, whereas when you have the full clear contrast, the higher contrast, in both cases, you're having lower cognitive processing load, so you can handle it for longer. And again, we're not considering the actual environment in this case, this top left. We are just looking at the fact that compared to the low contrast where it's all grayed out, here you can clearly see the people, you can clearly see the furniture, you can find your way to the washroom, you're not going to be stumbling around. Over here, when you've got this, you have very little competing in that human speech intelligibility zone, so you can easily hear people, but here you're drinking from that, you're listening from that fire hose, so to speak, right? So this is it in a nutshell. Here I have simulated kind of visually again, sort of like two different examples, extremes of contrast. So this first example here is essentially you're looking at again, this is a calibrated space. This is where the sensory factors are controlled, so you're not getting overwhelmed. There's good contrast for your senses to be able to more easily parse and interpret and discern. So, and over here on the left, this is kind of, again, simulating that idea that if you've got calibration, then you're only getting like your peaks. You're not going to be getting avalanched by sensory. And that's kind of, again, the equivalent to kind of over here. The threshold is raised, you're not getting as much. But if you then look, if you let it flip to here. So here, again, this is full on, like this is that smoky looking room where you come in and it's really hard to parse, individual like notes or people or objects. Like it's just frequency soup, which is what I call it. It's just everything all at once, and your brain cannot easily parse it. And then over here, you're getting like the full spectrum, the full volume at all frequencies, this is simulating the full sonic load of a busy, loud event space, uncalibrated. And if this is what the main space in events is like, which it is in a lot of cases, then this can kind of help you understand how you can't really easily go from this to this, again, big difference, to quiet, and like it doesn't have to be silent. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that every event needs to be silent, that you can never have music playing, but we need to be more aware and we need to understand how to calibrate and control sensory factors, which is why the Sellis model was developed, because I noticed that all the different sensory channels, this can happen in every sensory channel. You can go into a space, and this is showing an audio example, but you can go into a space that has like so much going on visually, not smoky looking, but like there could be so many lights and so much motion and so many different things happening that it's a lot for your brain to process and to filter. Like you're doing it subconsciously. This is the thing. And auditorily, you can be in a space and you might not even really notice the music, but you're still processing it. It's still taking mental energy, especially if you're trying to talk over it. Again, sense, if there's a lot of different sense, if there's a lot of different like physical textures, like you're going from like standing to like chairs to like all these different things all the time. These are all things that are chewing up your sensory processing power. And some people have lower capacities and lower thresholds than others, but any person with a nervous system, which is all of us, who goes to a highly overstimulating event, very low contrast, over time, they're still going to get fried. They're still going to get, they're going to processing collapse. They're going to get overwhelmed and tired and shut down. And if they don't completely shut down there, when they leave, when they go home on their own time, then they're going to be exhausted, depleted, and need that time to kind of recover, because we are not meant to exist in spaces like this. Hunter-gatherer humans didn't, and we shouldn't either. So I understand that people like music and then having silent events. Again, don't have silent events, or not purely silent, but within reason. Like this is why, again, the Sellis model was developed, to recognize that it's not just the volume, it's not just the brightness of the lights. There's a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes, and this is the science behind it. So I referred to the Sellis model earlier. What the heck is the Sellis model? It's something that I developed from this work that I've been doing. It's a fully integrated cross-sense, cross-sector sensory accessibility model for shared spaces. It is focused on indoor spaces because that is where I feel like this problem is the worst, and it is the easiest to control it there. In outdoor spaces, it's much harder to control the sensory factors. But solace is a real word. It means to bring relief or to cause relief or to be in a state of relief, essentially. But I turned it into an acronym for sound, olfactory, lighting, accumulation, climate, and ergonomics. It also happens to handily work out to relate to different spaces that are, again, mostly indoors. But it was originally developed for the events industry or for shared public spaces. But we do move between workplaces, classrooms, healthcare settings, and other places. And we're constantly running into uncalibrated environments that are just causing us to do all this extra filtering, right? And that's a problem. This is a very simplified kind of contextualized visual of what is kind of ultimately happening. So the environment layer is like the base of everything. Every space that you're going to be in is going to have some base level of sensory environment. They're not all going to be perfectly silent. They're not going to be perfectly, perfectly calibrated light, scent free, temperature, all that stuff. But what happens is there's always going to be something that adds sensory load, whether it's, people talking, whether it's music, whether it's people's perfumes, whether it's, if there's open windows or if there's windows facing the sun comes in and heats it up. There's all these things. But as sensory stimuli get added, you create a strain layer, because if it's not being calibrated or regulated, then it builds up, it accumulates, and it starts to become overwhelming for people. Then you have the strain layer, where people are forced to compensate or self-regulate, whether that's earplugs, whether that's putting on, sweaters, or any number of things. Maybe blue light blocking glasses, which I wear these things a lot. They're a lifesaver for me. Block blue light, link in the description, affiliate link. Then the withdrawal layer is the next one, where, again, that's the processing collapse. That's when the contrast collapse overwhelms you. You don't have the energy to continue to filter the stimuli in the environment. You shut down and you need to leave. Now, maybe that's just going to the quiet room if you just kind of want like a little bit of time to be chill. But for some people, you can't just leave the main space and then just come back later if the main space is way too overwhelming. So the withdrawal layer is, it's an exit point. And for some people, it's just a permanent exit. They're not going to come back. And they might not ever come back to that event, period. Not just a matter of they're not going to come back from the quiet room or from the bathroom or they step outside for a minute. They might not come back to that event, and they might not come back to that event in the future at all, period. And then finally, the intervention and support layer, which is where I feel that most current neuroinclusion efforts exist. So that's where you're doing like occupational therapy, and you're identifying or helping people identify what their sensitivities are to then, find mitigations for them. But this is all putting that responsibility on the individual, which is not where it should be. Now again, here we're looking at these two different examples of spaces potentially for events or for socializing. This is, again, a picture from my phone at an event. It was a networking event. It was held in a converted industrial space, which you can tell by seeing concrete walls and steel beams and rafters, and not a venue, not a space that was built for social events. And they've got a DJ, just you can't quite see them here, but there's a DJ there. There was a DJ at the event. And so this is basically a big rectangular, square, flat, hard box. And that is the worst possible environment to have social events in, because the sound is just constantly bouncing around. There's nothing to filter it or to help diffuse it or anything like that. So it's just bad. And there are a lot of converted industrial spaces that have become event spaces because they're not being used for industrial purposes anymore. They need to use them for something, so they end up putting events in them, and this is a bad idea. Conversely, here we have kind of not the complete polar opposite, but like this is comparatively a much better environment because we've got couches and chairs and carpets, so there's something there to absorb some of the sound waves.
Air particles are forced to move through a dense maze of fibers. The motion creates friction and tiny pressure losses, converting sound energy into heat. The thicker the panel and the deeper the air movement, the more energy is lost. And even with mineral wool, density matters. Too soft and air passes through too easily. Too dense and the wave reflects instead of entering. As species, we've always heard reflections. Sound bounces off trees, rocks, the ground, walls. Our brain needs that spatial context to make sense of sound. Take that away and you're fighting your own biology. So our job isn't to kill the room, it's to tame it. For a small bedroom studio, a solid target is getting the reverb to drop by about 60 decibels within 50 to 200 milliseconds for the mids and highs.
We've got those, and then along the ceiling, we've got these sound panels, which are at angles. They're different sizes and lengths. They're the same thickness though, but they're shaped and positioned so that sound that's coming at them is going to be diffused. It's going to be it's going to be absorbed, partly diffused, partly reflected. But it's preventing those sound waves from just continuing to like ping pong around unobstructed and never really like losing their energy. Even though this ceiling, as you can see, is concrete and it's flat, but it's also these like slats. So there's still opportunity in there for sound waves to kind of be like redirected enough that it will reduce their how long they sort of persist for. And then, otherwise, like glass as well. Glass is a thing that can slow down and help to diffuse sound. Not entirely, but it's better than if this room was just a concrete steel box with none of this other stuff. So that's a brief overview. If you're an event planner, you're a venue manager, you're a conference organizer, take note. I know you won't always have control over the full kind of physical environment and everything, but again, I say, do not host and facilitate social events in converted industrial spaces if you can possibly avoid it. It is the worst possible environment to do that in, short of being outside, like next to a highway or something like that, because it's just the worst environment for particularly sound. But again, here we've got these got flat, hard surfaces, steel and concrete, which sound just reflects and bounces off around from. And there's just, then over here we've got couches, carpet, like pillows. You've got these sound diffuser absorbers hanging from the ceiling at all these different angles. The glass doors here, glass does reduce, it does kind of filter sound a little bit. It both reduces the volume and some of the frequencies. And there's enough other different kind of angles happening that helps with diffusion and basically kind of slowing down and reducing the reflections of the sound that's in the space. So again, if you have the control and the power, have couches, have chairs with padding, like that's another thing. Steel, plastic, wood chairs, wood maybe not quite as much, but like steel and plastic are just completely sound reflective, and they're not very physically comfortable either. So avoid those if you can help it. If you are curious and if you are interested in the tools that you saw in this video, like for example, the Live Spectrogram app, this is an app, this is Android only, unfortunately. It's called Spectroid. So this is Spectroid, and this is a good one to pull out if you go into an environment where there's music or there's some kind of interference, some ambient noise that's bothering you. You can pull out this app and you can find out what's going on. Now, the bar manager or the event manager might not know. They might not be able to say like, oh, it's 8,000 hertz. Let me go fix that for you. But it still helps. It's better than nothing. The other app that I use is just called dB Sound Meter or Volume Meter. You can find it easily. Again, this is Android. This is an Android app. There's probably something for iOS, but I don't use iOS stuff, so I don't know. But this is just a very simple one that can do a volume recording, or a real-time volume recording. As you can see, it's got a little measurement bar that shows you where the current volume compares to different things like lawnmowers or trucks or quiet libraries. And again, this is one that you can just pull out really quick and easily in an environment. And again, I said I go to a lot of events, and I often find that this goes above 70 or 80 decibels. Above 80 decibels for a social environment is too much. So if that's happening, you can show them this. You can say, like, you need to turn the music down. They can't really argue with this. So with those two apps and the information, the context that you've gotten from this video, I hope that you're able to better self-advocate and to teach the people around you how to make at least your audio environment, your sound environment more comfortable and more accessible. Because sound is the #1 complaint that I have heard from people through my surveys and through talking to people in real life. That is the #1 complaint that people have in public spaces. As I hope that you can tell, I really try to put a lot of passion and care into these videos that I'm making and to the broader sensory education materials that I develop. Sensory advocacy has become my life's work at this point, and I'm really grateful that I can use my creativity to help in that work. The truth is, in fall of 2024, I actually ended up in the hospital from severe burnout, in part due to neurodivergent burnout. And I spent the next year after that on medical leave and starting this work in earnest and really kind of finding my place. Unfortunately, that wasn't paying the bills, and I've had to return to a day job, which is taking the majority of my energy again. So I have limited capacity to do this work and to make these videos. So if you do appreciate this content that I'm creating and the work that I'm trying to do, I would really appreciate your support. And maybe all you can do for support right now is to like and subscribe, leave a comment, share the videos. But if you are able to do more, if you're able to sign up on Patreon or buy some of the merch from my merch page, or use one of my affiliate links, or join my newsletter, any of these things can help, and I do really appreciate it. I really do want to keep doing this work, and I want to do more of it. I have so many topics that I want to cover, and people that I want to collaborate with. But as with a lot of neurodivergent people, until I have more financial security and flexibility, I'm doing the best that I can here. But either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you come back for the next video and many more. So like I said, I'm not arguing that events should all be silent. I know that people like music. Having a little bit of background music can enhance an event, it can enhance an experience, but within reason. And I think this is the problem, that lots of people are finding the volume at these events too much, and even sometimes the type of music, like having a DJ mixing like club music or R&B or like stuff with heavier bass is a bad idea for a social event. But this is why, again, I developed the Solus model, and the goal is calibrating towards more ideal sensory ranges for humans. And it's not always bigger is better. It's not always high energy. Like, there's a time and a place. And I'm hoping that together we can all push and help make events, conferences, workplaces, schools, healthcare settings, everything more sensory friendly, calibrated, and comfortable, so that we can thrive and we don't have to burn so much of our energy filtering sensory information.